I'm Dennis Spear. I came to Natomas in 1979, and I was born in Placerville in the foothills. I was born in 1945, which a lot of people are shocked by because I never act 75 now, so I don't feel it. I don't want to live in a gated community where there's no kids. And I work a lot with teenagers publishing N Magazine in Natomas. In fact, I have youth writers who've, in fact, the latest article on electric cars was written by a 15-year-old. So I've been really trying to include youth in what I do in life and in my business, simply because that's the future and there's no way around it. They're going to be the ones running things when I'm in a rest home. I want some smart people. You know what's fascinating is youth today are interesting to me simply because I grew up, there were no calculators, there were slide rules, but I wanted technology. I knew it was coming. And I would seek out people who were doing things that would seem futuristic, like designers that worked for television at the time. Up until about a year and a half ago, people used to peg me around 55. And now it's gotten to where I look in the mirror and I can see the 75.
Okay, sorry, let me just gather my thoughts. Okay, so for you, it was very important when you were younger, the idea of engaging with technology and creativity and design.
And it was all through graphic design. I actually had a comic strip early on that I published, and I still do it from time to time, but it was always on the latest politics or the latest technology. Now, I came to Sacramento, I worked for a title company drawing maps, but I loved the area out here. It was all rice and corn, and it was just beautiful fields. But the people out here were doing interesting things. They were trying to preserve nature and preserve the fields and the farms. And so I had gotten married in '75, and we bought a piece of property here in South Natomas. I worked for a title company, but I was looking for something new, and I had met a lot of people who worked for television. Channel 3 was the big station, and I knew the art director. And I wanted to do something, and I know that they were creating a new public television station, and it was kind of rudimentary. So I wrote a grant with the California Arts Commission and created a design department, and I changed the whole nature of the graphics on public television when it was first really getting going. And in Natomas, Channel 6 PBS was on Garden Highway near the Sacramento River. To get there from where I lived, I rode a bicycle from South Natomas up to San Juan Road, which was gravel and dirt, and I rode through the fields to Garden Highway, and that's where the station was. So I did that every day for many, many years. One of the interesting things about riding to Channel 6 from South Natomas on the Garden Highway was that you went through the fields. You saw the wild animals. There were quail. There were a lot of golden garden spiders who had giant orb webs. In fact, you'd wake up in the morning and in your bathroom, you'd find an orb web on your sink. But in any case, there was a calmness to riding that distance. Now, I didn't like getting wet, so when it was rainy season, I had a 1967 Datsun sports car that I would drive to work on. But whenever it was sun shining or even a nice day with clouds, I would ride the bicycle. I still own the '67 Roadster, and I'm planning on taking it on a cross-country trip in about a year. So I'll have to do some work on it. Yeah, my son Alex was born in 1980 on May Day, May 1st. And we decided early on that we wanted them to learn as much as possible. But in terms of transportation, a bicycle was always in our lives. And even when they were little kids, my daughter came later, but we didn't even teach them to drive. We taught them how to ride bicycles. And when they were in 7th grade, 6th or 7th grade, we taught them how to ride a bus. In fact, they rode the buses. They could go to the downtown library and everything. It was really great because I didn't notice a lot of other parents doing that. My kids did not learn to drive until they were 17 or 18. And even then, they rode the bus because they knew how to do it. Natomas was a very interesting place in Sacramento because it was more a combination of farmland and rural with the urban and suburban. You know what's interesting in riding a bicycle from South Natomas to Channel 6? Channel 6 was a building on Garden Highway with one tower. That tower aimed at Walnut Grove, the main tower in Walnut Grove. I created a little design studio in the back of the building because that was where you could see the cattle and see nature. And that was always a very creative place for me. But there were two interesting issues. One, from my desk, I could look at the outside and nature, the cattle and what was going on in nature. But right behind me was the electronics department where they created everything you can think of that dealt with television. So I was able to cross both worlds. And I enjoyed it so much. But being able to look out onto nature during the day, I had more creative ideas about what the future should be for television by just kind of accepting the nature into the studio. And it was really a nice combination. I loved it. And
what do you think is the value of having creativity and arts in the development of a person's life?
You know, it's interesting, and there's a disappointment in the fact that they used to say art and music in schools. Well, I didn't believe in it the way school systems did. We use graphic design, music, writing. We're creative from the very beginning when we're young people. And yes, you do need an innate talent sometimes, but learning how to use the tools, how to use a brush the right way, how to hold a pencil correctly so that you could draw a circle without using a template. Nobody thinks about that anymore. And when you think of art in school, they have a few painting classes or something like that. But graphic design plays a more important part in our lives than we can imagine. You turn on the television, the first thing you see is an advertisement. I taught a lot of kids over the years how to think about advertising from the inside. Why is that ice cube that shape? And it really worked on a lot of kids. In fact, later in life, I received a letter from a young guy who started an ad agency in Texas. He just sent me a letter saying that if it wasn't for me, he couldn't have done that. So, contributing to someone else's creativity was really important. I didn't realize the effect I was having until I started getting letters from the students. But I don't like to separate young people from old people. You've got to have this diversity of aging, not just education, but age. The diversity of that, the creativity is so much more. Even the older people become more creative. Never lose your creativity. I mean, I'm as creative now as I was when I was 25. And I still embrace the new, but don't forget the history.